Hello and welcome back to Mystery Shots. Hopper, an archaeology professor, is searching with his dog, Bus, for his family, who went missing in the 1970s after entering a cave in search of the fabled Fountain of Youth. As he continues on his journey, he notices a cave in the distance. At the cave's entrance, he is surprised to see a cowboy man whose gun and clothing appear to be from a bygone era. Hopper, shocked by his discovery, returns to his home. Hopper organized this trip with his teaching assistants Taylor and Jackie. After arriving at home, Hopper informs them that things have changed, and the professor decides to return to the cave on his own. Hopper discovers a layer of atmosphere that separates the cave from the rest of the world as he enters the cave. He decides to break through the layer, and the cowboy man he found at the previous visit starts to move. It has been 2 days since the professor left, but Taylor and Jackie have received no communication from him during that time. They decide to search for him. They ask Kara, Taylor's crush, to borrow her dad's SUV because they don't have their own. Viv's Kara's sister also needs to complete a school project. Kara decides to take her as well. They are also accompanied by Viv's friend Furby. The kids arrive and discover Hopper's parents' van, where they learn that the professor has been searching for his family at the cave all this time. They then come across an old rope that leads them to a different area of the cave. They discover the rope has been disconnected and learn that it is not Hopper's rope because it is already very old. They also discover how deep the cave is. The kids decide to continue their descent into the cave, leaving Furby to keep watch because he is too scared to join them. Kara discovers the same invisible layer that Hopper discovered earlier. They decide to break through the layer. A moment later, after Hopper follows the cowboy man, he begins to experience strange sensations. He notices a strange dance of light. It's as if someone is constantly dimming and brightening the cave's entrance with a huge flash or something, and then he hears a screaming voice and tries to escape the cave. As previously stated, Hopper entered the cave while the sun was still shining, but only for about 5 minutes inside. The outside world has changed dramatically, and it is already dark. A few minutes in the cave is comparable to decades outside. He also discovers Kara's SUV and Jackie's backpack, so he plans to return back to the cave. As the children begin to explore, they are startled to hear screaming voices. And, beginning with Jackie, the girls choose to exit the cave. But the rope snaps and she falls, injuring both Jackie and Taylor, who is attempting to save her. Taylor then pulls the second rope, only to discover that it has also been cut. The group begins to believe that Furby intentionally cuts the rope in order to have fun. They use the radio to communicate with Furby, but he does not respond, and eventually they hear some muffled sounds from the radio, claiming to be Furby. Left with no choice, the group decides to go deeper into the cave, leaving the injured Jackie on the other side alone. The team discovers a cut-off rope in the dead body of Furby, who has a broken neck. They then replay the footage from Furby's camera to figure out what happened to him. Furby discovers from Hopper's father's journal that the cave contains magical water that heals people. When Hopper's sister becomes ill, the family decides to visit the cave in search of the water. Furby decides to go inside the cave after spending several days outside looking for the car keys. While he spends an entire day inside the cave, the rest of the group only spends seconds. As Furby enters, his rope got cut off, causing him to fall but does not die. He lies for about an hour and then wakes up to respond to Taylor. However, a caveman attacks and kills him. Vives also notices something absurd, because the time code from the recording spans several days despite the fact that they have only been in the cave for an hour. Because both Taylor and Jackie are injured, it is up to Kara and Vives to find a way out and call for help. Because Vives is younger, Kara decides to climb up the same way they came down and emerges in a completely different location. There is no sign of vegetation, and the air feels strange, causing Kara difficulty breathing. Kara also finds a huge dust storm coming her way. She then notices a huge triangle-shaped object in the sky. Unable to call for help, she goes back inside to the cave. Others accuse her for not even attempting to ask for help. She is being blamed because she had been outside for about 30 minutes and only a few seconds had passed in the cave. The group notices that time is passing faster outside the cave than inside. Taylor also mentions that the ropes at the top of the cliff are deteriorating quickly, causing them to sever due to friction with the cliff face. Vives rewatches the recording of Furby's footage, realizing that the sun paths are constantly changing. She also reveals that the brightest summer in the dark is winter, allowing one cycle of season to be seen in less than 1 second, implying that an entire year passes in less than a second. As a result, we can calculate and discover that they have been in the cave for approximately 5,400 years. When Kara tries to climb the cliff one more time, a very futuristic and high-tech ladder appears out of nowhere, along with a giant being dressed in a spacesuit. A caveman appears and begins to attack the giant, but gets killed. The group decides to flee to another section of the cave, where they discover the bodies of the cowboy man and Hopper's parents. They are also met with 3 other cavemen. Taylor decides to fight the cavemen, but is brutally murdered, and all of the girls flee to the other side of the cave. Kara returns and discovers his dead body. She is confronted by the alien giant while crying over him. He picks up Taylor's body and drags him to the pool of water, where the water miraculously revives Taylor. The caveman returns to attack the giant, knocking off his helmet, exposing him to air. Despite being unable to breathe, he manages to capture all the cavemen. Giant shows the group several news clips about their disappearance, implying that humans have begun to relocate to another planet in order to preserve humanity. At this point, the group realizes there is no turning back, and they must decide whether they must leave immediately or live there indefinitely. However, Taylor eventually discovers a mortally injured Hopper in front of another thicker layer of wall containing the Hopper's long-missing sister and frozen people from various eras fighting to seize the youth fountain. Hopper explains that the entire cave is a system built to protect the fountain. Each layer has a different speed, so the time in the deeper layer is much slower than the time in the previous layer. The water is used by the group to heal the injured Jackie and the deceased Furby. However, they are being attacked by the last caveman. Since they have nowhere to go, they decide to use the high-tech ladder from the giant to climb outside the cave. When they arrive at the cave's mouth, they discover that the entrance has been flooded. Kara tries to escape through the layer, but is suddenly yanked by strange creatures that turn out to be a more evolved human. A fully suited caretaker returns to the cave moments later, followed by a high-tech rope to retrieve everyone from the cave, including Furby Hopper and Hopper's parents. Furby Hopper, his parents, and sister are all brought back to life at the end, and they are now aboard the larger spaceship. It is on its way to the new Earth. Like and comment your thoughts about this mystery shot. And don't forget to subscribe Mystery Shots for more such content.